Good morning and good afternoon to everyone out there. Welcome to episode 73 of the Leading IT podcast. Today we're going to talk about shadow AI and what you can do about it. So, big problem out there. We're seeing most customers are struggling with that, and there was a press release saying that 78% of users are bringing their own AI tools to business. So today we've got David Stevenson, the Empyrean IT cybersecurity lead on. He's been on the podcast before, and we're going to talk about what you can do and how you can protect your organisation against it. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. This podcast is for Australian IT leaders who are looking to stay up to date with the latest IT news and trends across AI, cybersecurity, data, cloud and infrastructure, strategy and leadership. And your hosts are leading CIO Tom Layden and myself, Josh Rubens, CEO at consulting firm Empyrean IT. All right, Tom, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Good topic today. I'm looking forward to getting into this. I'm seeing this issue in so many of the people I go and visit, the clients I talk to. Very, very good topic. But before we get there, let's talk about the news, right, Josh? What's your first one, mate?
I was just going to say, almost every customer I'm talking to has got the same problem.
Yeah.
I thought that's what.
Excellent.
All right, the first one is not about AI. So Broadcom VMware had their annual conference last week called VMware Explore. I'm not going to do our usual long run. There was just a couple of things that I thought were pertinent to everyone. The first thing is VMware Cloud Foundation 9 is now generally available. And we mentioned a few podcasts ago what some of the new features were in there, so I'm not going to cover them again. But what they did do, which was unexpected for Broadcom, is that they've given all their VCF customers an AI platform. So what they're doing is they're giving them a model store to run on-prem, model runtime, GPU monitoring, and agent builder, a vector database, and data indexing and retrieval. So, and they can run these models across whether it's AMD or NVIDIA GPUs without refactoring. So that's customers are essentially, they're getting that for free in inverted commas with their VCF licensing. So, sort of the message is Broadcom are saying, they're really going full on with this private cloud messaging, and that, you don't need to go out and run AI on public clouds, which is expensive, as we know, and that they're giving you an easy-ish way of doing it on premise.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. You've still got to buy the hardware, right, though? You still need the GPUs as well, right? I mean, and that ain't cheap either, but probably cheaper than running a cloud instance, right?
Well, they almost make you buy the GPUs up front on the cloud, so it's still not cheap. But yeah, I mean, you'd have to be pretty, have a good internal IT team to be able to be confident running it all on-prem, because there's a lot of plumbing the cloud vendors do for you. But it's good to see that Broadcom are doing it, and they're actually giving, not only just ripping customers off and tripling pricing, that they're actually giving stuff for free. The other new announcement is this Tanzu Data Intelligence. So it's a new modern data lake platform. So if you want to have an on-prem Fabric or Databricks, so it's called Tanzu Data Intelligence. So very similar, can do all the things you'd expect from a modern data lake on-premise. And the one that will excite all our vSAN customers out there is they're now supporting S3 object storage on vSAN. So you can have a centralized storage repository, whether it's block VM storage or file storage, and now object storage directly on vSAN. So a lot of customers will be happy with that. So you don't have to go out to third-party solutions. You don't have to buy any additional software or licensing or hardware to run it. So now a single platform to run it on. And they announced that 9 of the top 10 Fortune 500 have adopted VCF. So trying to get a bit of a positive story out about Broadcom. But their share price still continues to
go up,
rocket up. So
there you go. And that's how you judge these days, isn't it, Josh? That's how you're judged. But I mean, they're obviously targeting the top end of town. They're targeting those companies that have problems with public cloud, so that makes sense. I think for a lot of the middle tier organisations, still struggling with the pricing, right, Josh?
Well, middle is okay. It's the small.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
It's
right.
the small
Because of
end.
the forced,
Yeah.
licensing increases. Yeah.
Yeah. So whereas if you're going to use, as we did that podcast, right? If you're going to use these tools and you're big enough, then
There's value.
It's competitive
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, nice one. So a couple of news items for me. AWS, they've opened up a New Zealand region. Like no one really cared previously, but that's actually turns out to be quite important if you've got New Zealand sites and you need to improve latency and performance over there. So that's good to know. You might have missed it. It kind of snuck in really. Three availability zones.
The old sheep shaggers. Yeah, no worries.
And hello to all our New Zealand listeners out there as
welcome.
well.
As they turn us off. Yeah,
That's a good one to alienate our audience.
correct.
Josh, what's your other news item?
No, okay, you said you had two. That was
I
too
got
quick.
two.
Give us something else.
Yeah, all right, no worries. Yeah, Atlassian, my favourite, increasing their prices by 10%. 10% price increase. How could you do that? So not only are they struggling to get their products to market, but they're now increasing their prices by 10%. Thank you. So just be aware it's coming up. So you just start preparing, I'd say, for that bun fight.
Didn't they sack 1,500 staff by email?
Yeah, that's right. No, awkward like video, pre-recorded video as well.
Even worse.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So just be aware that that's coming and just keep an eye on their roadmaps as well. And you might want to have a few cards up your sleeve with those guys, I'd suggest.
Yeah. All right. My last bit of news is GPT-5. OpenAI's worst release yet. So not
I
solving.
like it. Well, what do you mean
solving the worst problems. So I will provide some facts and some support to that. So from what I've been reading, this wasn't in one source, that it may mark the decline of OpenAI. So they've had back-to-back poor releases, so GPT-OSS, so poor benchmarks. It's underwhelmed many with its benchmark scores, so managing just 56.7% on simple bench and placing fifth, fall behind expectations. So I think the issue is, in the past, OpenAI has blown everyone else away, and with this one, they haven't.
They're catching up. I've definitely noticed that.
They haven't blown. So some of the specifics, so math reasoning, so still makes simple mistakes, minor gains over GPT-4. Symbolic logic scored poorly, worse than Grok 4. So I think Grok 4 came out at a similar time and smashed it. Common sense reasoning, so struggles with basic logic unless told to think step by step. Still hallucinates, makes up names, counts letters wrong, invents details. Code generation was pretty good, but very narrow gains over 4.5 and now behind its rival. So it looks like others are catching up. Yeah. So,
but I think they've missed some of the benefits though as well. And the benefits are really around.
This was a negative article, so definitely wasn't focused on the positive. But I think the point they're making is that OpenAI is now more focusing on revenue and profit and becoming a business rather than that's the point they were making.
Yeah, that's interesting because the release was more targeted consolidation and improving usability actually, which it does do. But if it's not accurate, who cares? Like if it's nice to you, but it's wrong, like it doesn't matter. Whereas so many other tools are available to the consumers, right? And to the workspace, which is what we need to talk about, right, Josh?
Which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. So let's bring David in. Welcome again, David.
Thank you for having me.
We can't have been too bad to you, given that you chose to come back. Although, given that you work with me, I'm not sure you had a choice.
Exactly.
No, but so I think I'll just repeat the stat that says that 78%. I just want to set the scene, and then we'll get into it. 78% of users employ their own tools at work, so AI chatbots, writing assistants, without informing their employers or IT departments. the global regulatory landscape for AI is continue evolving. The legislation in Australia is under consultation, and Australian companies cannot be passive in their approach. So what I'm seeing is a lot of customers are saying, I have an AI policy, and they expect that is not helping
No
you
one.
in a day-to-day.
Helping no one.
Helping no one. And then, there are... so, Dave, over to you. So what are the risks? So what is the problem with letting
what are you
users...
seeing?
Yeah, what are you seeing, and what do you see? What are the actual technical risks? So, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I guess kind of coming back to the news article as well, GPT-5, good, not great. We are seeing end users at organizations using GPT. We're seeing them use Grok. We're seeing such a large diversity as well as where that data is going. It's not just everyone's using GPT and we have to solve for one, we have to solve for many. I guess from the risks, it's the uncontrolled data sharing. It's the potential IP data leakage. If we go back to the early days of GPT, we look at NVIDIA uploading schematics into GPT models. It's the compliance violations as well there. So there's quite a lot that we don't know what's happening. Everyone, I think, agrees that staff members will be using AI products to a degree, but they don't know what's going out to them. They don't know the quality of the information that's going out to them. We've got internal people that will use them and make sure that we isolate what we're doing, or we're using them just for fun, but we're never using customer data in them. When we talk to end users at organizations that we work with, they don't necessarily know what customer data is. They don't necessarily know what PII is, and they're indirectly sharing that information to these models.
And do you find that they even care? So even if they did upload a spreadsheet of customer data, because it's not immediately visible as to where that data goes, they don't typically care is the big barrier I'm seeing.
No, exactly. And, it's often what we see when people start talking around Meta, Microsoft, Google. They're the biggest companies in the world. Why shouldn't we trust them with our data?
Yeah.
They're not looking at data sovereignty. They're not looking at compliance. That sort of goes out the window. The culture for data sovereignty and compliance isn't really at the end user. It's more at the CISO level and the CIO level.
Yeah, that's right. So they're seeing benefits, immediate benefits, but they just don't see any of those risks or issues.
Exactly.
And then in terms of the results that people get, do you find that people are just over-trusting the models?
Yeah.
For the most part, I think everyone's aware of it might lie to you. We often see stories around legal utilizing it, and too many times they're being called out on it now. But at the end of the day, if I'm not going to court, if I'm not trying to prepare for a court case and I'm just trying to quickly get an email out to a customer, I'm not overly fact-checking it as much as what we should be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing called, I read about, called authority bias. That people tend to stupidly trust what they're getting. And the amount of times I ask someone, where'd you get that info? I found it on the internet. Oh, must be right then. Must be true. So we're trusting it on Google or AI just because, so there's definitely an over-trust. And I think the other point is, and the bigger question here is, I mean, firstly for you, Tom, and then David, is do we want to stop this? So is it let's stop? So I don't think that's the answer. It's more how do we protect rather than, because I don't think I don't think it's the finger on the dam, right? You're not going to stop it. So it's what can you do to protect? So Tom, from a CIO's perspective, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. So what is the problem? And, so people being more productive, right, for free, essentially by using their own or paying for their own accounts or whatever. So what is the problem? And the problem, as you say, is data security is an issue, and the accuracy of the data is kind of the two big problems. And then the third problem is that you're not able to leverage shared internal models because no one's using them. They're using the external public models. So you're missing out on that opportunity to build up your own kind of solution. So are you coming in at a security, confidence type space, but your big picture needs to be shown as well. So that, you're kind of using the cybersecurity problem to start with, which is hard because people don't understand it. So it comes back to education, I think. David, would you agree with that?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, again, when we look at the models, GPT versus Grok versus Claude, they're all good at individual things that don't always correlate across the model. So, what we use with Copilot and GPT, it's fairly similar. But then typically we go to Grok for a lot of the mathematical problems that we're working with. We go to Claude when we're working with code. So each of these models have very good parts that they work on, which means we kind of want to be able to use the right model for the right function. And that I think
Yes.
then comes back to this
Yeah.
of we don't want to sort of pigeonhole and just say this is the only technology you can use and it's really bad at actually doing the function that you're trying to achieve. But at the same time, we want to make sure that that data security is across the entire landscape and can be
Yeah.
dynamic as new products come to market. We can still incorporate
Yeah.
those into this as well.
That's a really
Yeah.
good point, actually. So one of the sort of problems, risks. Here's an example of, say, you're a technical expert. A customer asks you about technical information about a specific product you're selling. Instead of doing your job properly, you just put it into your favorite AI tool, and AI spits out that something looks pretty bloody good, and you forwarded that on. So you've just potentially told the customer some crap. It's real, it's in an email, and that could seriously cause you loads and loads of problems.
Well, and there's a couple of things there. I mean, that is, the Big Four grad is potentially dead here, by the way, because
That's true.
just doing research and producing slide decks. That's probably there. But Dave, there's other issues, right? There's not just sharing the data. There's also actors, sort of bad actors, prompt injection attacks, and things like that. So do you
Most
want to
definitely.
Talk
talk a
about
little bit
that.
about explain a bit about that?
Yeah, so we really look at agentic AI and AI agents within the workforce. So, we look at typical software like sort of looking at motion, where it's tied back into our calendar. It's looking at tasks lists and introducing information onto our calendar. If we're looking at Gemini, pretty much managing our Google Workspace these days, we often now see malicious actors trying to jailbreak and prompt inject on these systems. Gemini had a major flaw, sort of was released a couple of months ago. We could send it over a malicious ICS file, so a calendar file, which would then read out your top 10 emails and spit them back out over the service. So we're
Wow.
looking at sort of data exfiltration through prompt injection and jailbreaking. So making sure that we can also protect for that and monitor for that in the environment also becomes quite trivial. We're also looking at what we're registering to access our data in our systems as well.
Yeah, that's
So,
that's really important point.
Yeah, so I think so. I mean, we're starting on a downer, but I just want to, get the message out there because there seems to be a bit of a lightheartedness out there among IT managers and stuff that it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. From a data loss point of view, from a security point of view, and the compliance point of view. But there are genuine issues, and this is an attack vector that's being
It's real.
that's being used. But the good news is we have solutions now to protect it, and today we're going to focus on Microsoft because everyone uses Microsoft, and Microsoft is where most data is kept for a lot of companies. So we want to cover off, what you can do with Microsoft, and also how can you also protect against these third-party shadow AI consumer tools. So, Dave, tell us a bit about sort of Microsoft solutions and where it starts, and take at a high level, and then we'll get into some detail there.
Yeah, most definitely. So I guess as we're looking at AI in a broad sense of terms, so not just Copilot, but the third-party AIs, ChatGPT, Claude, really, realistically, what we want to look at is our identity and access, our data protection, and our threat protection throughout the mix. So very much focusing on making sure that we've got our foundational security in place, that we've got Entra configured and hardened against zero trust principles, making sure that we've got data classification and data protection in place with something like Microsoft Purview, and making sure that we've got the threat protection locked down. So things like Defender for endpoint, Defender for cloud apps, and then all of that tying back in together so that we can start doing discovery and visibility work across the landscape. So making sure we can identify where these third parties are being utilized, how they're being utilized, and the type of information that's going across those third-party applications.
So walk me through it, Ro. So Josh,
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, so end users on a browser, they open up Claude, their own instance of Claude on their Chrome browser or whatever. They're on the corporate network, so they're protected. What happens then?
Yeah, so I think the big thing there is we want to actually remove the corporate network. So as we start looking at a zero trust framework,
Yep.
it's really good. We've got enterprise grade firewalls, we've got deep packet inspection, we can see everything traversing across our firewalls. That's only so good as until the user goes home and copies sensitive
Spot
data
on.
at home.
Yep.
So what we want to do is actually bring that back to the endpoint. So things like Defender for Endpoint and Defender for Cloud Apps will give us those CASB solutions at the endpoint, making sure that we can monitor all data going to all cloud SaaS apps. So it sort of removes any of the gaps that we might be introducing there and ensuring that we don't trust that it has to be from the corporate network. With that, we can then see where the users are going to. So if they're accessing Claude, if they're accessing unsanctioned or shadow AI applications, that starts giving us visibility. We can see how much data is being uploaded to those third-party services, but we can also see where sensitive data is then going across the wire, and we can monitor that all through the Defender for Cloud app.
Awesome.
What we then do is we tie that back into the DSPM solutions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so you can potentially block that at the end user point.
Exactly.
So, yeah, great.
So we can go in and say generative AI, let's block that as a category. However, we do have a department that needs access to GPT, so then we'll unsanction it just for that department.
Yep. And when you unsanction it, are you still able to track sensitive data going across that network?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, right. And I think that's the key. And instead of hard blocking, to say, well, look, we don't mind you using it in these cases, but you cannot send passport numbers across.
Well, Tom, what Purview does is essentially it's the firewall at the file at the data level.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. So even if they use it at home on their own device, when they're trying to use your data and you have Purview, data loss prevention, and they're trying to put something in that is classified as sensitive or highly sensitive, you've got policy against it, they're not going to be able, they won't be allowed to put that, cut and paste that data into a private tool. So it does require a bit of, this Microsoft platform approach with these three products. And, the one of the products that I think is one of the most underutilized products in the Microsoft stack is Defender for Cloud Apps, which is their almost their shadow IT finder. So it's firstly, it will show you all third-party SaaS applications that people are using, so excluding AI. So it can show you, and then it allows you, so visibility. Second, it allows you to then to track, and then you can block, you can take action on what people can do with third-party apps. And now this is extended now to third-party AI tools. So I think when we first engage with customers, part of the first things we do is this Defender for Cloud App scan, then the Purview scan around the data, and then the ongoing is the data security posture management piece. So do you want to maybe just take us through each of those, and then and how that works and how they tie together?
Yeah, most definitely. So I guess at the end of the day, an organization doesn't know what they don't know. So getting that discovery and visibility piece in. So as we look towards Defender for Cloud Apps, it's identifying what third-party services people are using and identifying it back to the user level. So we can identify the exact user using the exact third-party system, which is fantastic, but we don't necessarily have visibility over the data. So that's where Purview then comes into place to do that Purview data assessment as well. Help you identify, using sensitive information types, the types of data that you have in the organization, who has access to that data, and then tying it back to Defender for Cloud Apps where that data is actually being transacted over the wire. So we can look at that as if a file is being uploaded to a third-party storage or if it's being uploaded into a chat agent. We can also look at that as if information from that file is being copied and pasted into the browser and where it's being interacted, again, with the AI agents.
Yep. Terrific. So I've got a really good story from a listener actually of the podcast. I won't name their name, but pretty high up, like a pretty senior guy, CIO type role at a big organization. And he was actually looking through firewall logs to try to work out who was using what AI tool, but more importantly, what were they actually trying to do with the AI tool as well. So what kind of queries were they sending? And he's trying to get they're trying to build up the business case for developing their own agents, right? but also understand the risk
I
behind that as
can
well.
take a guess on who that is, by the way. And,
Don't name names.
And I think his name might start with B, but I'm just saying. Well, I think
Could be anyone.
I think with Defender for Cloud Apps, you don't need to look through.
Yeah,
You don't need to
right.
look through logs. It's
So it would
Exactly
save
it.
that problem.
correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. You no longer.
But what he was after was the pattern of usage as well. So it was really interesting.
Yep.
So instead of just saying, no, he goes, well, actually, I want to know how people are using it. And then that informs the agent we start to build, or the automation processes we start to build as well.
Glad you asked that. So now talk about Purview data security, DSPM, which stands for Data Security Posture Management for AI. So Dave, maybe talk about how that what that does. So at a high level, it's a dashboard. So it's your day 2 ongoing management for AI. So it's a dashboard that gives you visibility into what people are doing, etc. Dave, over to you for a better explanation.
Yeah, most definitely. So as we start looking towards DSPM, it's more looking at people have the right access to the right data and that they can only utilize that data in the right circumstances. So if we've got highly classified data, we want to just do a hard block on that from going into the chat agents or the AI agents. But it also allows us to do a lot more around the threat protection and the user behavioral analysis as well. So this is where we can really start getting into looking at prompt injection, model abuse, and sensitive information exfiltration. But we can also make sure that, again, we want people to be able to use these agents. Coming back to your story, Tom, where they're looking to develop their own internal AI.
Yep.
It's quite expensive. It's quite a production effort. It's also going to have a time to market as well. When you've already got things that are readily accessible from the consumer market that's going to achieve that functionality today. So whilst we're highly supportive of going down and building out your own AI agents, it's also allowing you to utilize these agents securely with the correct guardrails in place and the correct monitoring for compliance in that sort of day 2 scenario.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense. I guess what they're trying to do in this scenario is to say, look, they're looking to do a specific job, but we need to really inject our own information into this process. And so you're trying to sort of understand, okay, where do we say, look, actually, this needs to be done within the compounds of our organization. It sounds like that would help understand where people are going outside.
So I think if you have, obviously, your Purview licensing, you've got Defender for Cloud Apps, and you turn on the Data Security Posture Management portal, it's going to give you the visibility, live visibility and reports on what people are doing, what they're using, the blocks, who's trying to do a risky prompt, and you can set templates for what people are allowed to do. So it's giving you that ongoing management of what's going on. So the first thing you want to do is get the Purview. We do this data risk assessment where we scan your environment and we look for, different data types in your organization. So it might be, driver's licenses, health information, credit cards. It will show you where in your environment you have this risky information, and normally it's in all the wrong places. Where you have your oversharing, where you have, hey, that HR file is where your oversharing risks. And then the next thing we do is the Defender for Cloud review. So looking at what are people using in your environment, and then that informs, the next steps of a Purview implementation. So we implement controls around your data, and we start applying data labels and protections to your data, and then also policy around which third-party apps people are allowed to use. So we're allowing them to use the apps, but within the guardrails. And then the Data Security Posture Management portal is the ongoing management where you're getting in a single place visibility across what your people are doing. So that's agents as well as third-party apps, third-party cloud apps, and Microsoft products. So you're getting it all in one place. So it's pretty good. So Microsoft have really the DSPM stuff is newish. It's come out in the last sort of 3 to 6 months, but Microsoft have really, I think, got the most mature offering in the market, that platform approach where they're not stopping you using everything else. And I think unfortunately I don't think most people out there know that this stuff's available, which is why they're trying to Tom, I mean what's your being out there a bit, what would you say?
Well, they either do a hard block at the firewall level and they just say, no, you can't do it, we don't allow it, or they have no block and let everyone do everything all the time. And it seems to be those two extremes, and no one's really got their hands on how to do this safely and in a sort of mature way. Hey, the other point though, David, and I just to be contrary, I just wanted to ask you this question. So I do get this a bit. So people go, well, maybe do we want Microsoft doing everything? Is that a risk? Is this a vendor risk we need to be aware of? Do you hear that as well?
Yeah, look, we do. We often get we want best of breed instead of just the
Yeah.
Microsoft-centric solution. We also get we need to diversify our tool
Yes.
suite just to make sure all of our eggs aren't in one basket. The challenge that is good and bad is Microsoft are probably the best in market for DSPM for AI at this stage. It also means we've got all of the tooling under one license. And kind of as a part of this conversation that we've had today, we're sort of looking at Defender for Cloud Apps as a CASB solution.
Yeah.
We're looking
What's a
at
CASB,
Purview,
by the way, for people who don't know?
Cloud Access Service Broker. So
Right.
making sure as we're accessing these tools, we're going through a gateway that we can monitor what we're doing. So competitors on the market are going to be your Zscalers and your Netscopes.
Yep.
Which are
When we're
expensive, by the way.
Yeah,
Very
and that's
expensive.
the thing. I think that's the
Much
trade-off
different,
as well. So there's a better together story, definitely. And there's
exactly.
also a more efficient price story as well when you do
Big
this.
time.
And I think I just remind people of the CrowdStrike issue
Yeah.
when everyone diversified, and then guess what? It actually increased your risk because the vendor stuffed up. Of course, that blue
We also
screen
look
horror.
at data sovereignty as well. So as we start
Yeah,
mixing
right.
and matching best of breed products together, we've got to look at the interlop to make sure they all work together. But now we've also got data sitting and being managed across multiple third parties. We're doing our third party risk assessments now with multiple vendors as well. Where with Microsoft, we know that the data sovereignty is all within our tenancy. We set the location for that data.
Yep.
And then we're managing it all within one single pane of glass.
So, Dave, the licensing, so you can either have we've got a lot of customers, sort of the sub 300 seats using Business Premium,
Yep.
or E3 or E5. So maybe talk through each scenario about what sort of licensing people will need.
Yeah, so with a lot of these products, we can go for the individual bolt-on or add-on product to license the exact tool. Typically, what we're looking at for our E3 clients is the Microsoft Compliance add-on. That's a collection of these tools, and it's going to get you exactly where we need to get you to incorporate all of these tools within one license or one additional SKU. Business Premium, it's going to be the same SKU add-on for that one. Otherwise, if we more move towards the E5 license, everything's going to be included there outside of a couple of the additional sort of SharePoint advanced threat management licenses.
Yeah. So obviously E5 is very expensive for not a not-for-profit. But yeah, Business Premium or M365 E3 is called the E5 Compliance and Management add-on, which gives you all the Purview stuff you need. Gives you the DSPM, and it includes Defender for Cloud Apps, and that's not that expensive. So we definitely recommend customers, buy into this. And yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of right, Dave? I mean, that's we're doing more of this than we're doing anything else at the moment.
Exactly. It's sort of a lot of our clients are going down the Purview and the Defender for Cloud Apps route right now, sort of the early stages of getting on top of AI sprawl. And it's, Purview would easily be our largest selling and most engagements that we've had over the last 12 months, primarily generated by AI adoption.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So it's the combination of the three that's really giving you, the right sort of solution. Sorry, Tom.
No, I think it's interesting. I think from a pricing point of view, it's really about understanding what tools you've got and what you can consolidate to justify, because people go, oh, that's very expensive. But when you say you can turn off three other things at the same time, that's when these things start to stack up.
So, Dave, can I ask you a question? So what about an app, users business apps are all adding AI capability onto it. iManage, for example, has their own Copilot. ServiceNow will have a Copilot. So every app. So what do we do there?
Yeah, so again, we look back towards a solution like Purview. So Purview, sort of as we go through the journey, we look at our internal data and our Microsoft data, but we also look to integrate SaaS applications back into Purview. And it's a partnership between Microsoft and the applications introducing the Purview SDK.
Right.
From there, it's the information that's being managed and the analytics that are being managed within those applications that are being shared back to Purview, goes into your Sentinel as well, more from a SIEM perspective, and helps sort of train the user behavioral analysis. So whilst Microsoft might be the core solution, your third-party business applications then become a part of the bigger picture within that.
So that's really interesting. I didn't know that. So you got to ask for the SDK to make sure that there's a
if it's not, there's a
Purview
list.
SDK.
There's a list of supported apps already, which is the most common ones. And then if not, there's an SDK where you can develop to connect to it. But most of the the mainstream apps are already there. So
right.
Yeah.
A good point. Very good point.
Yeah. So what are the challenges? What are the challenges here? So we need user resistance, skills gaps. So what are some of the challenges here?
Yeah, so I think typically when we're looking at it, it's primarily user adoption is always one of the large challenges. With sort of how we're doing it with Microsoft, kind of makes it all background functionality. So the user adoption piece, we're not turning off the agents that they've already been using and the agents that they've been training with their personas. So we're still allowing them to use the tools that they've been using and the tools that they've learnt over the years, but we're just putting those guardrails in. So the user adoption piece is kind of taken care of at that stage. We sort of look at the DSPM. The implementation is quite complex. It's still pretty new. There's not a lot of blogs on the internet at the moment around, this is how I did it.
Yeah, right.
Sort of a bit of a challenge from there. And realistically, you do want to go to a service integrator that is familiar, is certified, has been, doing day one implementations. That said, it's always going to be changing. You do need someone who can stay on top of it to help you integrate those new features. The good thing is once it's implemented, much like Purview itself, it's pretty set and forget, and you're just operating it more from a compliance dashboard level.
Mm. Have you come across stuff that just breaks? You put it in, you're going, oh, hang on, it's broken something. Have you seen any of those issues?
For sure, bad implementations. You've got a tool set that is there to govern how data is utilized. If it's not thought through and mapped out correctly, when you implement these tool sets, you can quickly disable an organization.
Mm.
So again, it comes down to
stuff was going on underneath the covers no one knew about, and all of a sudden you've stopped it because it was bad, and then something doesn't work.
Exactly. Or, again, we highly focus on building out user personas and actually working with the business instead of just the IT department. So we want to understand through analytics how AI is being utilized, where data is traversing in the environment. Is there a business reason for that data? I think, typically we've come in and assisted clients who have had a bad Purview implementation in the past where they've said PHI cannot move in the environment, so private health information. With that, it then broke sharing private health information to other health providers that is a requirement for the business. So getting it wrong can be very bad for user adoption.
The issue is there's a bit of Purview in the base licensing, but not the automated stuff. So sometimes we get customers themselves going in and that, turning on stuff and where they don't really have the capability to do it.
Okay. So you can't just smash it in. You've got to go through and actually understand your data flows properly and just go gently to start with. Okay, that's really
exactly.
Good.
And what do you do about oversharing controls and things like that? How do we control that, Dave?
Yeah, so typically we're focusing on large volume of historical overshared content. So again, we can look at where data is being shared. We can also look at the sensitivity type of that data and restrict that down. But it all comes from sort of that initial assessment that we look to do to understand your current landscape. I think stats at the moment is any new employee to a mid-size organization has access to over 10 million files and require about 30 of them. So this is where we typically start looking at, again, that sensitive information type. You're not in finance. Why do you have access to finance data? Because it's been incorrectly put into the wrong location that you have access to. And we start looking at doing more file-based access control than sort of folder or site access control.
Yeah. Excellent. That's the key. All right. So Dave, what's the, if people want to, what's our process? How do we engage? What's the starting point for people who are interested in engaging us or someone else? Hopefully,
most definitely.
Hopefully us, because we're nice and we know what we're doing. But maybe take us through that.
Yeah, so typically what we'd look at is understanding your sort of security foundation within the organization. So before we even really look at sort of data and AI at this stage, making sure that you've got your 365 security sort of wrapped up, that you've got good access control, that you've got information protection, and that you've got threat protection in play. From there, we then start looking at our data discovery and our AI discovery piece. So really leveraging what we get out of Defender for Cloud Apps and what we get out of Purview to start working out that roadmap around Purview, or looking at that roadmap of Purview adoption, as well as AI adoption, and how we can start putting the guardrails in place.
Okay, risk
You're on mute.
assessment.
There he is.
Yeah,
He's
that's
come
a
back.
sort of a risk assessment engagement, right? So it's
Yeah, right.
a couple
Yeah.
of weeks of services,
Exactly.
which then a lot of customers will use that report to drive investment in the licensing and the rest, and professional services to get the rest done, because it basically shows how bad their restrictions are, and they've got data everywhere, and we've seen all sorts of things sitting where they should.
Exactly. We want it to be short and sharp, but yet effective for the clients, and to have them a remediation roadmap to follow through.
Yeah.
Good one.
Okay, I think that's good, Dave. Tom, anything else you want to?
No, that 10 was it 10 million documents? You only need 30. Was that the stat?
That's it. Yep.
Bloody
Day
hell, that's a
one,
good
10
stat.
million.
10 million documents, and you only need 30. How scary! That is a reason to move. I reckon that's very good.
Yeah. No, good. All right. Well, thanks, Dave, for joining.
Good job.
As you said,
thanks,
so
Dave.
there is some good news out there for listeners. There's a clear path forward. If you want to reach out to us, to David, it's dstevenson and empyreanit.com.au, or David Stevenson on LinkedIn, or myself, Joe Rubens at empyreanit.com.au. If you want some CIO or board mentoring or consulting, reach out to Tom Layden on LinkedIn, or if anything else you want to discuss, you can reach out to me at joerubens at empyreanit.com.au. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Tom and Dave. Always a pleasure. And out there, enjoy yourselves. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.